Chosen one. What if I told you that right now, in this very second, there's a transfer order sitting in heaven's treasury with your name on it? What if the financial breakthrough that will shock your entire bloodline has already been approved, funded, and released? What if the only thing standing between you and generational wealth is this moment of divine recognition? You didn't stumble across this message. Heaven scheduled this. Right now, you're not watching a video, you're answering a divine summons. There's a reason your finger stopped scrolling. There's a reason something in your chest tightened when you saw these words. Your spirit recognizes what your mind hasn't grasped yet. This is your moment. For too long, you've watched others prosper while you barely survived. You've whispered prayers in empty rooms, wondering if God forgot your address. You've tithed your last $20 while watching bills multiply like demons. But what if I told you that every seed you planted in secret, every tear you cried in silence, every yes you gave God, when it made no sense, what if all of it was building compound interest in heaven's economy? Here's the shocking truth your family doesn't know yet. You were never actually broke. You were strategically delayed. Heaven has been holding your inheritance in escrow, waiting for this appointed hour when your elevation would serve not just your survival, but your family's salvation from generational poverty. The courtroom of heaven has been in session over your life. The verdict is in, the gavel has dropped, and the transfer, the one that will make your relatives whisper, "How did they get that?" It's not coming. It's here. Listen carefully. Can you feel the stillness? That's not silence. That's the sacred hush before supernatural breakthrough. Right now, invisible forces are aligning. Angelic accountants are processing your divine deposit. The wealth that will rewrite your family's story is moving toward you at the speed of God's timing. If your heart is stirring already, if something inside you whispers, "This is for me," type "I receive it" in the comments right now. This isn't interaction. It's agreement with heaven. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving. You're sowing seeds that help spread light to others who feel forgotten in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your time, your attention, your faith. It all matters. But listen, chosen one, what if this moment, this exact moment, is when your legacy turns? What if everything your ancestors couldn't access is about to flood through you? What if the shock your family is about to experience isn't just about money, but about witnessing what happens when heaven decides to interrupt a bloodline with unprecedented favor? Stay with me, because what happens next will change everything. Have you ever wondered why God allowed you to struggle for so long, while others seem to float effortlessly into blessing? Have you ever questioned why your prayers bounced back like echoes in an empty canyon while your neighbor's lottery ticket hit for 50,000? Have you ever felt like the forgotten child at heaven's dinner table, watching everyone else get served while your plate stayed empty? Dear chosen one, I need you to lean in close, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie the enemy whispered during your midnight crying sessions. The reason your journey has taken so long, the reason you've endured years of financial drought while watching others prosper, is because the transfer heaven is preparing for you is too holy to be rushed. You see, ordinary blessings can be released at ordinary times. But what God has assigned to your bloodline isn't ordinary. This isn't a tax refund. This isn't a small inheritance from a distant relative. This is a generational reset. This is heaven's way of saying, every delay was divine strategy. Every rejection was divine protection. Every closed door was heaven saving you from settling for less than the shock-level blessing I had planned all along. Think about Joseph. 17 years old when God gave him the dream. 13 years of slavery and prison before he touched the palace. Why 13 years? Because the throne Pharaoh was preparing required a man who could handle sudden elevation without losing his soul. Joseph couldn't be trusted with Egypt's economy until he proved he could maintain integrity in Egypt's dungeons. But here's what will blow your mind. Joseph's brothers thought they were ruining his life when they threw him in that pit. They had no idea they were launching him toward a destiny that would save nations. What looked like betrayal was actually heaven's transportation system. What felt like abandonment was actually divine appointment. And that's exactly what's been happening to you. Every person who walked away from you in your season of struggle, they were making room for the relationships that can handle your elevation. Every job that rejected you, they were preserving you for the position that comes with equity, not just employment. Every bank that denied your loan, they were protecting you from debt that would have capped your ceiling. Have you ever felt overlooked by your own family? Have you been the one who shows up to every funeral, every graduation, every crisis, but when you needed support, the phone went straight to voicemail? You've poured out generosity with nothing poured back. You've been the shoulder everyone cried on while your own tears fell in silence. You prayed when you had nothing but silence in return. But God was watching. God was recording. God was building your case in the courts of heaven. And now the verdict is in. You've been approved for a transfer so massive it will require your family to completely rewrite their understanding of what's possible. Look at Sarah, 90 years old when Isaac was born. Why did God wait until her body was past its prime? Because Isaac wasn't just supposed to be a son, he was supposed to be a miracle. If Isaac had been born when Sarah was 25, people would have said, "How nice, another baby." But when a 90-year-old woman gives birth, the only explanation is God. Your financial breakthrough is coming at the exact moment when there will be no earthly explanation. When your credit score doesn't justify the approval, when your work history doesn't explain the opportunity, when your connections don't account for the phone call, when the math doesn't add up to the miracle. They're going to ask, "How did you afford that house?" You'll smile and say, "God funded it." They're going to wonder, "How did you pay off that debt?" You'll whisper, "Heaven handled it." They're going to stare at the business you started, the charity you launched, the family members you blessed, and the only explanation will be supernatural supply. The thing they called delay was divine escrow. Heaven was holding your inheritance until you were mature enough to steward it without it destroying you. Because here's the brutal truth. Money given too early creates monsters. Wealth released prematurely produces pride. But wealth transferred at divine timing produces purpose. You've been asking God, when? But God has been asking you, are you ready? And finally, the answer is yes. You've proven you can worship with wounded hands. You've shown you can praise with an empty wallet. You've demonstrated you can stay faithful when the only thing you had left was faith. Job lost everything: his children, his health, his wealth, his reputation. His wife told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him of secret sin. But Job refused to let temporary devastation define his eternal destiny. And when his season of testing was over, God didn't just restore what Job lost. The Bible says God gave him twice as much as he had before, double for his trouble, multiplied return for his pain. That's your story being written right now. Every sleepless night you've endured is earning compound interest in heaven's economy. Every tear you've cried in secret is being converted into currency for your comeback. Every time you chose obedience over bitterness, you were making deposits into an account that's about to shock everyone who knows your story. But here's the urgency. This transfer window won't stay open forever. There's a divine timing to this release, and we're in it right now. The angels assigned to your breakthrough are standing by. The vault of heaven is unlocked. The authorization has been signed, but you must position yourself to receive what's already been released. So I need to ask you something that will determine everything. Are you ready to stop explaining your struggles and start stewarding your success? Because the family that's about to be shocked by your elevation needs to see that you didn't just survive your season of testing, you were transformed by it. What happens next will prove that your delay wasn't denial, it was divine preparation for a transfer that will rewrite your family's financial DNA forever. Dear chosen one, I need you to understand something that will shatter every financial lie the enemy ever whispered in your ear. For years, you've been living under the crushing weight of a devastating deception. You've looked at your bank account and believed the numbers. You've stared at unpaid bills and accepted them as your reality. You've watched your family struggle and thought, this is just how it is for people like us. But what if I told you that everything you've believed about your financial condition has been a carefully orchestrated illusion? You see, there's a difference between being broke and being in escrow. When you're broke, there's nothing coming. When you're in escrow, there's a massive transfer waiting for the right conditions to be met. And beloved, you were never broke. You were strategically held in divine escrow. Let me paint you a picture that will change how you see your entire financial journey. Imagine heaven's treasury as the ultimate escrow company. Years ago, maybe decades ago, before you even knew to pray for provision, God wrote a check with your name on it. But unlike earthly transactions, divine transfers don't depend on your credit score, your education, or your family's economic history. They depend on one thing: divine timing. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:1, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your financial season was being held back not because you were unworthy, but because you weren't ready for the magnitude of what was coming. Think about Abraham. God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars, but Sarah's womb remained closed for decades. Was God lying? Was the promise fake? No. Heaven was waiting for the appointed time when the miracle would serve not just Abraham's desire for a son, but God's eternal plan for all nations. Genesis 17:19 declares, "Sarah, thy wife, shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac." The delay wasn't denial, it was divine strategy. Now here's where your story gets shocking. While you were crying yourself to sleep over bills, Heaven's accounting department was calculating compound interest on your faithfulness. Every time you tithed when you couldn't afford it, the escrow account grew. Every time you helped someone else when you had nothing, the balance increased. Every time you praised God through financial drought, heaven added zeros to your divine deposit. You thought you were just surviving. God was building your inheritance. But why the wait? Why the delay? Because premature wealth destroys unprepared people. Look at lottery winners. 70% go broke within 5 years. Why? Because money without maturity is dangerous. God wasn't withholding from you. He was protecting you from prosperity you couldn't steward. Every closed door was heaven saying, "Not yet." Every rejection was God redirecting you from opportunities that would have stunted your growth. Every financial disappointment was actually divine protection from wealth that would have corrupted your calling. The Bible reveals this pattern repeatedly. Joseph went from pit to prison before palace. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading a nation. David was anointed king but spent years running from Saul. Why? Because the greater the calling, the greater the preparation required. And you, chosen one, have been in preparation. Every struggle taught you compassion. Every lack taught you gratitude. Every closed door taught you dependence on God. You weren't being punished. You were being processed. Here's the revelation that will rock your world. The transfer isn't coming because you finally deserve it. The transfer is being released because heaven has determined you're finally ready to handle it without losing your soul in the process. Think about this logically. If God trusted you with $5 when you had nothing, how much more will He trust you with when you've proven faithful in the wilderness? 1 Samuel 2:7, -8 declares, "The Lord maketh poor and maketh rich. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifteth up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among princes." This isn't about luck. This is about divine positioning. But here's what makes this transfer different from anything you've experienced before. This isn't just money, it's a divine mandate. You're not receiving this wealth to hoard it, spend it carelessly, or use it to impress people who never believed in you. You're receiving it because God has assignments that require funding, and He's chosen you as His financial steward. The reason your family will be shocked isn't just because of the amount, it's because they'll witness the authority that comes with it. When God funds something, it carries His endorsement. Doors that were locked for generations suddenly open. People who ignored you start seeking your counsel. Opportunities that seemed impossible become inevitable. This is what happened to the widow in 2 Kings 4. She had nothing but a pot of oil, but when she stepped into divine instruction, that oil multiplied until every vessel was full. The oil didn't just pay her debts, it provided for her future. One moment of divine intervention restructured her entire economic reality. And that's exactly what's happening to you right now. If this is confirming something you've always felt but couldn't name drop, God funded it in the comments and say it aloud right now. Because, beloved, the waiting is over. The escrow period has ended. Heaven has received the final signature, and the divine transfer is now in motion. Your family is about to discover that the one they thought was the financial burden was actually the financial breakthrough they never dared to pray for. But the question that will determine everything is this: are you ready to walk in wealth without walking away from worship? The reason they won't believe it is because they remember who you were. But now, God is about to show them who He made you to be. Your family has a selective memory when it comes to your journey. They remember the struggle. They remember the nights you couldn't pay rent. They remember when you asked for help and got silence. They remember the version of you that apologized for dreaming too big, that shrunk to make others comfortable, that carried their burdens while your own back was breaking. But here's what they forgot. They forgot that you were the one who stayed. When everyone scattered during family crisis, you remained. When bills needed paying and no one else stepped up, your empty pockets somehow found a way. When prayers needed praying and faith was running thin, you held the line. They forgot that in every family, God chooses one. One to be the bridge, one to break the cycles, one to carry the weight until heaven decides to intervene. Look at Joseph. His brothers sold him into slavery, convinced they'd gotten rid of the dreamer who dared to see beyond their limitations. For years, they probably laughed about it. Remember Joseph and his crazy coat? Remember his wild dreams about us bowing down to him? They mocked what they couldn't understand. They dismissed what threatened their small thinking. But then came the famine, then came the desperation, then came the moment when they stood before Pharaoh's right hand and realized they were staring into the face of the brother they'd betrayed. The Bible says in Genesis 45:3, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers could not answer him, because they were terrified at his presence. They were terrified not because he had power, but because they realized they never really knew who he was. The dreamer they'd tried to destroy had become the deliverer they desperately needed. That's your story, chosen one. Your family is about to discover that the one they overlooked was the one God was preparing to overflow. The one they pitied is about to become the one they depend on. The one whose dreams they minimized is about to fund their reality. But here's the deeper wound that needs healing for years. You've carried their silent judgment. You felt their disappointment when you couldn't afford to contribute to family gatherings. You heard their whispered conversations about your struggles. You sensed their pity mixed with love, their concern wrapped in doubt. They loved you, but they stopped believing for you. You became the family project, the one they prayed for but never expected miracles from, the one they helped when they could, but never saw as someone who could help them back. They assigned you a role, the struggler, the survivor, the one who needed rescue, and in their minds, that's who you've always been. That's about to shatter. When this transfer hits your account, when the opportunities start flooding in, when the favor becomes undeniable, they're not just going to see money, they're going to see manifestation. They're not just going to witness blessing, they're going to confront the reality that God was working in you all along, even when they stopped looking for it. Your Aunt Martha, who said you needed to be more realistic about your dreams, she's about to eat those words with a side of humble pie. Your brother who constantly gave you advice about getting your life together, he's about to realize you were getting your life together, just not on his timeline. Your cousins who stopped inviting you to family functions because they were embarrassed by your struggles, they're about to be calling you for investment advice. The shock isn't just about the money. The shock is about the awakening. They're going to realize that while they were praying for you to change, God was changing everything around you. While they were asking him to fix your situation, he was positioning you to fix theirs. This is the Joseph moment. This is when the family narrative flips. This is when the one they underestimated becomes the one they can't ignore. And just like Joseph's brothers, they're going to be forced to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the person God always intended you to be. But here's what makes this even more powerful. Your elevation isn't about revenge, it's about restoration. You're not rising to rub their faces in it. You're rising to lift their vision. Your breakthrough isn't proof that you were better than them. It's proof that God's plans are bigger than any of them imagined. When Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, he didn't shame them. He said in Genesis 45:5, "Do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Your family is about to learn the same lesson. Your struggles weren't random, they were strategic. Your delays weren't denials, they were divine preparation. They pitied you, now they'll have to listen to you. They questioned your choices, now they'll be asking for your counsel. They doubted your dreams, now they'll be funding from your reality. What if your breakthrough isn't for you to flex, but for them to finally believe again? What if this transfer isn't just changing your bank account, but restoring their faith in impossible things? The shock is coming. And when it does, when your family sees what God has done, they're going to understand something they missed all along. You weren't the weak link, you were the wild card. You weren't the family disappointment, you were the family's divine appointment. But this revelation, this family awakening, it's just the beginning of what God is about to unfold through you. Chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to pierce through every financial lie you've ever believed. What if you've been praying for money when God has been preparing you for ministry? What if you've been begging for provision when heaven has been building you into a distributor? What if, and this is the game changer, what if you've been stuck in survival mode when God designed you for stewardship? Here's what nobody tells you about divine transfers. They don't come to consumers, they come to custodians. The money that's about to hit your account isn't cash flow, it's kingdom stewardship. And your family is about to witness the most shocking transformation in your bloodline's history, the birth of a spiritual banker. You see, for generations, your family has operated under what I call the orphan spirit, always waiting, always wanting, always wondering when their ship would come in. But God didn't create you to wait for ships. He created you to build harbors. You're not waiting on money anymore. Money is waiting on you. Let me paint you a picture that's going to shatter every small-minded money conversation you've ever had at your family dinner table. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a financial assignment being downloaded into your spirit. You're transitioning from the family member who always needed help to the family member who provides help. From the one who borrowed to the one who banks. From the relative who struggled to the relative who strategizes. This isn't just about you getting blessed. This is about you becoming the blessing distribution center for your entire bloodline. Think about Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers, forgotten in prison, written off by everyone who knew his name. But when Pharaoh's dream needed interpretation, when Egypt faced 7 years of famine, who became the economic architect of the entire nation? The same man his family had rejected. Genesis 41:41 says, Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." Not just the palace, the whole land, the economy, the distribution, the strategy. Your family sold you short, but God is about to make you their economic salvation. Here's the spiritual mathematics that's about to blow your mind. Every time your relatives looked at you and saw lack, God was looking at you and seeing a future financier. Every time they whispered about your struggles, heaven was orchestrating your stewardship training. You weren't broke, you were being prepared to handle wealth without it handling you. But let me ask you this, are you ready for the responsibility that comes with this transfer? Because when God funds your life, He's not just changing your bank balance, He's changing your job description. You're about to become the family's spiritual accountant, the bloodline's financial counselor, the generational wealth architect. Proverbs 13:22 declares, "A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous." You are that righteous generation. You are the storage facility that generational wealth has been waiting for. The money that was locked up in your family line for decades, it's about to flow through your hands. But here's where most people miss it. They think the transfer is the miracle. No, chosen one, the transfer is just the tool. The miracle is what you build with it. You're not getting money to spend on yourself. You're receiving kingdom capital to invest in purpose. You're being trusted with resources to fund revivals, not just vacations. Your great-grandmother prayed prayers that are still echoing in heaven's throne room. Your grandfather planted seeds in hard ground that are finally ready to sprout. Your parents sacrificed dreams they couldn't even name out loud. And now God is consolidating all of that generational equity and placing it in your hands. Luke 16:11 cuts straight to the heart. If you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? You passed the test. You were faithful with little, so now you're being trusted with much. You stewarded emptiness with grace, so now you're being given abundance with assignment. This is why your family won't understand at first. They'll see the money and miss the mission. They'll focus on the transfer and overlook the transformation. They'll celebrate the deposit and ignore the deployment strategy. But you understand that this wealth comes with a divine blueprint. You're becoming the new banker of your bloodline, but not the kind that charges interest. You're the kind that pays dividends, not the kind that forecloses, but the kind that builds equity. You're about to operate with a different currency, kingdom currency, where investments multiply supernaturally and returns come with eternal significance. The shift happening in your spirit right now is seismic. Can you feel it? The orphan mentality is dying. The survivor mindset is being buried. The beggar's posture is being corrected. You're standing up straighter because you're carrying different weight. Now not the weight of need, but the weight of stewardship. Your family is about to witness something they've never seen before. What happens when God trusts someone with both vision and resources? When divine purpose meets supernatural provision, when heavenly assignment gets earthly funding. If you receive the assignment, not just the abundance type, I will steward the overflow in the chat. Because overflow without stewardship is just overflow wasted. But I need to prepare you for what's coming next. Because once you step into this new identity, once you accept this divine promotion from family project to family provider, everything changes. And I mean everything. Listen to me, chosen one. There's a reason this transfer can't happen in secret. There's a divine principle at work here that most people miss, and it's going to revolutionize how you understand God's justice system. The transfer has to be public because the silence was public, the poverty was public. Now, the provision must be seen. Think about this. When you were struggling, was it hidden? When you couldn't pay your rent, did anyone care about your privacy then? When you had to choose between groceries and medication, was that a private matter? When your car broke down and you had to walk 3 miles to work in the rain, was anybody concerned about keeping that quiet? Your pain was public. Your struggle was on display. Your family watched you barely survive, and some of them whispered behind closed doors about your bad decisions and poor planning. But here's what they didn't understand. God was watching too. And every public humiliation, every visible setback, every moment when you had to swallow your pride and ask for help, it was all being recorded in heaven's justice system. Scripture tells us in Psalm 34:6, "This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him." But it doesn't stop there. The next verse says, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and He delivers them. God didn't just hear your cry, He surrounded you with invisible protection while you endured public shame. Your family needs to see this reversal, because your breakthrough isn't just about you. It's about rewriting the narrative of what's possible in your bloodline. For generations, your family name has been associated with limitation. At family gatherings, when your surname comes up, what story does it tell? Struggle, surviving paycheck to paycheck, dreams deferred, adult children still living at home because they can't afford to leave. God is rebranding your lineage through your life. When Moses led Israel out of Egypt, it wasn't a quiet escape in the middle of the night. Exodus 14:8 says, "The Israelites were marching out boldly." Why boldly? Because their deliverance had to be seen by the same people who witnessed their bondage. Pharaoh, who had enslaved them publicly, had to watch them walk away publicly with back pay. The Egyptians watched their slaves become wealthy in a single day. The same people who had mocked their God had to watch that God fund their exodus with gold, silver, and precious stones. This is your exodus moment. The same relatives who watched you struggle are about to watch you soar. The same neighbors who saw you moving backward are about to witness you moving forward with supernatural speed. But let me ask you something that might sting. How many times have you begged God to bless you quietly? How many times have you prayed, "Lord, just let me have enough, but don't let anyone notice"? You've been asking for private provision because you're tired of public scrutiny. But God's justice doesn't work in shadows. His vindication requires witnesses. When Job lost everything, his friends came to comfort him, and they saw his devastation. But when God restored Job, Scripture says in Job 42:10, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Those same friends who witnessed his breakdown had to witness his breakthrough. Your restoration has to be public because your reputation needs public repair. Right now, your family thinks they know your financial ceiling. They think they've seen your maximum potential. They've watched you hit wall after wall, and they've lowered their expectations for your life. Some of them have even given up hoping for your success. That's about to change so dramatically that they'll question everything they thought they knew about how God moves. When this transfer hits, when that deposit clears, when that investment pays off, when that business explodes, when that opportunity materializes, it won't just shock your bank account. It will shock their belief system. They'll say, "How did this happen?" And you'll have the opportunity to say, "The same God who sustained me in poverty just promoted me to prosperity." Your last name is being rewritten. The story attached to your family name is about to take a plot twist that Hollywood couldn't script. Think about this. Abraham wasn't just blessed individually. Genesis 12:2 says, "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great." God didn't just change Abraham's circumstances, He changed what his name meant in the earth. Before Abraham, there was no generational wealth in his lineage. He was a nobody from a nowhere place. But after God funded his mission, the name Abraham became synonymous with divine favor, generational blessing, and supernatural provision. What if God is about to do the same thing with your family name? What if 20 years from now, when your grandchildren hear your surname, they don't think of struggle, they think of breakthrough? What if your name becomes the testimony that inspires them to believe bigger, dream larger, and expect more from God? But this kind of reputation reversal requires public proof. The wealth that's coming your way isn't just for your comfort, it's for your family's conversion. Some of them have stopped believing in miracles because they've watched you pray for so long without visible results. Your public blessing will restore their private faith. Speak your family's name into the chat. Don't be shy. God's about to attach new meaning to that name. Type it with expectation. Type it with authority. Because when this transfer goes through, when this financial earthquake hits your life, that name is going to carry different weight, different respect, different possibilities. The silence is over. The hiding is finished. It's time for your family to see what happens when heaven decides to fund a destiny. Chosen one, stop thinking small. Stop waiting for the blessing to find you. You are the blessing. You are not entering a season of favor. You are the season. Heaven didn't choose you to receive a transfer. Heaven chose you to be the transfer. Look at your hands right now. Those aren't ordinary hands anymore. Those are the hands that will sign checks for other people's miracles. Those are the hands that will build what your ancestors only dreamed about. Those are the hands heaven has been preparing to distribute divine wealth through your bloodline and into the earth. But here's what your family doesn't understand yet. The money coming to you isn't just money, it's liquid purpose. Every dollar carries assignment. Every deposit carries destiny. You're not getting wealthy so you can buy bigger toys. You're being entrusted with kingdom currency because God needs a banker he can trust. Think about it. When Jesus fed the 5,000, he didn't rain bread from heaven. He took what was in the boy's hands and multiplied it through human vessels. Matthew 14:19 says, "He gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds." You are that disciple. You are the vessel between heaven's supply and earth's need. Your family is about to witness something they've never seen before in your bloodline. Not just prosperity, but purposeful prosperity. Wealth with a mission, money with a message. They're going to watch you write checks they never thought you'd have the authority to write. They're going to see you fund dreams they thought were impossible. But listen carefully. This weight you're about to carry, it's not just financial weight. It's spiritual weight. Every time someone calls you asking for help, every time an opportunity presents itself to change a life, every time you're faced with a choice between comfort and calling, that's when your character will be tested. Remember the parable of the talents in Matthew 25. The master gave one servant 5 talents, another 2, another 1. But notice the master didn't give equally. He gave according to ability. The fact that God is trusting you with this level of transfer means He's seen something in you that even you haven't fully recognized yet. Your silence will become prophecy. Every quiet moment when you refused to complain, when you praised instead of panicked, when you blessed others while you were still believing for your own breakthrough, that silence was building prophetic power. Now, when you speak, things will shift. When you declare increase over someone's life, it will manifest. When you pray for provision, accounts will change. Your praise will become provision. Remember Hannah in 1 Samuel. She was barren, mocked, misunderstood. But her worship in pain became the very thing that unlocked her miracle. Your worship during lack wasn't just keeping your spirits up, it was making deposits in heaven's economy. Now those deposits are coming back as dividends that will shock your family tree. Your hands are now the hands heaven trusts. Think about Moses when God told him to stretch out his staff over the Red Sea. That wasn't magic, that was a man with empty hands becoming a conduit for divine power. Exodus 14:16 says, "Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water." Your hands have been through empty seasons for this exact purpose, so when they're full, you'll remember the source. This isn't about you becoming rich and forgetting where you came from. This is about you becoming a portal that stays open, a gateway that never closes, a pipeline that flows continuously. Your family will be shocked, not just by what you have, but by what flows through you to others. They'll watch you pay off mortgages for people you barely know. They'll see you fund scholarships for kids whose parents can't afford college. They'll witness you writing checks for medical bills that were crushing other families. And they'll ask, "Where is all this coming from?" And you'll smile and say, "I'm not the source, I'm just the spout." Here's the truth that will transform everything. You are no longer a seeker, you are a sender. You are no longer asking heaven for provision. You are heaven's provision for others. You are no longer praying for breakthrough. You are the breakthrough God is sending to your generation. The wealth transfer happening in your life is generational reversal. Every curse of poverty that ran through your family line stops with you. Every pattern of lack, every cycle of barely making it, every generational mindset that said we're not the kind of people who have money, all of it breaks today. But understand this, when you become the portal, you also become the target. Not everyone will celebrate your elevation. Some will question it, criticize it, even resent it. That's because they're still thinking with earthly minds while you're operating with heavenly authority. Your responsibility now is not to explain yourself to people who lack the spiritual capacity to understand divine economics. Your responsibility is to stay connected to the source, stay obedient to the assignment, and keep the flow moving. So right now, I need you to do something powerful. Lay your hands on your own chest right over your heart. Feel that beat? That's not just blood pumping, that's heaven's rhythm flowing through you. Now declare out loud, I am the portal. I authorize the flow. I receive heaven's transfer, and I release it according to divine assignment. Now type it in the comments below in bold letters, I am the portal. I authorize the flow. Because what happens next will require you to step into a level of authority your family has never seen before. You felt it, didn't you? When I spoke about that divine transfer, something shifted in the atmosphere around you. Your chest tightened, your breathing changed. That wasn't coincidence, that was confirmation. Because what I just described wasn't a promise for someday, it was a revelation about right now. But here's what most people miss, chosen one. The wealth was the sign, but the summons is the purpose. You see, God didn't just fund your life, He funded your assignment. And there's a massive difference between the two that will determine whether you step into destiny or settle for a temporary blessing. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. What if every financial struggle you've endured, every bill that came when your account was empty, every moment you had to choose between groceries and gas, what if all of that wasn't punishment, but preparation for this exact moment when heaven would test whether you're ready to carry kingdom wealth? Because here's the shocking truth your pastor never told you. God doesn't randomly distribute abundance, He strategically positions it. And that transfer I described, it wasn't heaven saying, here's some money. It was heaven declaring, now I can trust you. Think about David. Before he could wear a crown, he had to prove he could shepherd sheep in the wilderness. Before Joseph could manage Egypt's economy, he had to demonstrate faithfulness in Potiphar's house and integrity in prison. Whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, Luke 16:10 tells us. Every time you tithed when it didn't make sense, you were taking a test. Every time you gave when you were in need, you were building spiritual credit. Every time you praised God with pennies in your pocket, you were proving to heaven that you could be trusted with something that would make your family's jaw drop. But listen carefully, and I need you to really hear this. The transfer isn't the end game, it's the equipment. You didn't win the lottery. You were handed the keys to a kingdom vault, and now heaven wants a conversation. There's a reason why Jesus said, to whom much is given, much is required. Luke 12:48. That verse isn't a warning, it's a promotion notice. God is about to require things from you that He's never required before. He's about to position you in rooms where your presence carries kingdom authority. He's about to flow resources through you that will fund miracles in other people's lives and your family. They're about to witness something they've never seen in their bloodline before. Not just money, but anointing in motion. Not just prosperity, but purpose unleashed. They're going to watch you operate in a dimension of faith that doesn't exist in their vocabulary yet. But here's where it gets intense, chosen one. With great funding comes great responsibility. God isn't upgrading your bank account so you can upgrade your lifestyle. He's upgrading your capacity so you can upgrade His kingdom. Every dollar that comes through you carries divine expectation. Every door that opens for you opens with kingdom purpose attached. This is why the enemy fought you so hard. This is why the delay felt so painful. This is why the wilderness season seemed endless. Because Satan knew something your doubters didn't know. You were being prepared to carry wealth that would disrupt generational poverty, fund revival, and establish kingdom influence in places where God's people have been locked out. The transfer was heaven saying, the training is complete, the testing is over, the trust has been established. But the summons is heaven saying, now we go to work. You're not just being blessed, dear one. You're being commissioned. You're not just receiving provision. You're being appointed as a distributor of divine resources. The wealth that's coming isn't just for your comfort, it's for your calling. And I need to tell you something that might sound controversial, but it's biblical truth. God has been watching how you handled having nothing, because he needed to know if he could trust you with everything. The way you stewarded struggle determined whether you could steward success. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to deliver a nation. Abraham waited 25 years for Isaac before he could father multitudes. Joseph endured 13 years of slavery and imprisonment before he could save Egypt from famine. Your preparation may have felt like punishment, but it was actually qualification. But here's what's about to happen that will shock even you. The resources coming aren't just financial. God is about to release supernatural wisdom that will give you insight into investments, business opportunities, and kingdom strategies that millionaires pay consultants thousands of dollars to discover. You're about to have divine downloads that position you ahead of market trends, ahead of economic shifts, ahead of opportunities that others won't see until it's too late. Your family is going to watch you make decisions with a confidence they've never seen. They're going to witness you speak with authority about things you were never formally trained in. They're going to see you navigate situations with wisdom that seems to come from another realm, because it does. The transfer was just the beginning. The summons is your real assignment. And if your spirit is bearing witness to what I'm speaking right now, if something deep inside you is saying, this is my moment, this is my time, this is what I've been waiting for, then you need to understand that this conversation between us isn't accidental. God positioned you to hear this message because he's ready to position you for something your family tree has never seen before. Comment, I'm still listening, if your spirit knows this message isn't done yet. God's not finished speaking, and you're not finished rising. Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain why your assignment is bigger than your family's imagination, and why the shock they're about to experience is just the beginning of what heaven has in store. You've been walking around thinking you were broken, haven't you? Thinking that somehow God made a mistake when he crafted your story. That maybe you got the leftover portion while others received the premium blessing. But what if I told you that everything you thought was evidence of your failure was actually proof of your calling? You were never broken. You were disguised. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. For decades you've carried a secret identity that even you didn't recognize. While your family saw struggle, heaven saw strategy. While others witnessed your setbacks, God was orchestrating your setup. You weren't falling behind, you were being positioned. You weren't being overlooked, you were being prepared for something so extraordinary that it required years of hidden development. Think about a seed buried 3 feet underground. To the world above, that plot of earth looks barren, empty, worthless. Neighbors might walk by and think, nothing's happening here. But beneath the surface, in the darkness where no eye can see, something magnificent is taking root. The seed doesn't doubt its destiny just because it's surrounded by dirt. It doesn't question its purpose because the process is invisible. It knows that the very soil meant to bury it is actually nourishing it. That's been your life. Every rejection that felt like burial was actually planting. Every closed door that seemed like defeat was actually cultivation. Every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if God had forgotten your address. Those weren't signs of abandonment. Those were the deep waterings of a destiny too precious to rush. This is the hour heaven removes the veil. You are not surviving anymore. You are becoming. Do you remember Moses? 40 years in the wilderness, tending sheep, probably wondering if his Egyptian palace education was wasted. His family likely whispered, "What happened to Moses? He had everything and threw it all away." But God wasn't punishing Moses in that wilderness. He was preparing him. Every day with those sheep was leadership training. Every sunset in solitude was character development. Every moment of isolation was divine incubation. When God finally appeared in that burning bush, Moses tried to disqualify himself. "I can't speak well," he protested. But God wasn't asking Moses to be eloquent, he was asking him to be obedient. The man who felt like a failure was about to become the deliverer of an entire nation. The old you was the decoy, the real you is being revealed. You've spent decades being misunderstood, underestimated even by people who loved you. They saw your struggles and thought they knew your story. They watched your delays and assumed they understood your destiny. But heaven never forgot who you really were. While they were reading your circumstances, God was writing your character. Consider David hiding in caves, running from King Saul. His own father didn't even invite him to the royal selection ceremony. He was the overlooked son, the forgotten shepherd. But while David was dodging spears and dwelling in darkness, God was developing a king's heart within him. Those caves weren't prisons, they were classrooms. Those battles weren't punishments, they were promotions in disguise. The old you was the decoy. The real you is being revealed. Here's what your family doesn't understand yet. Your sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was spiritual antenna. Your inability to fit in wasn't dysfunction, it was divine design. Your refusal to settle for less wasn't arrogance, it was anointing. You were never meant to blend in because you were created to break through. But let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. How many more years are you going to apologize for the very qualities that prove you're chosen? How long will you shrink back from the calling that's been stirring in your spirit since childhood? When will you stop asking God to make you normal and start thanking Him for making you necessary? Anna the prophetess understood this truth. Luke tells us she was in the temple day and night, fasting and praying for decades. 84 years old, widowed for most of her life, probably dismissed by younger people as that old woman who talks to God too much. But when baby Jesus was brought to the temple, Anna was the one who recognized him. While others saw an ordinary infant, she saw the Messiah. Her years of seeming insignificance had positioned her for the most significant moment in human history. The old you was the decoy. The real you is being revealed. Right now, as I speak these words, something is shifting in the spiritual realm. The identity you've hidden under survival mode is being called forward. The dreams you buried under disappointment are being resurrected. The vision you dimmed to avoid criticism is being rekindled. This isn't wishful thinking, this is prophetic reality. You've been in your wilderness long enough. You've been in your cave long enough. You've been in your temple service long enough. The preparation phase is ending and the manifestation phase is beginning. Every tear was preparation. Every rejection was redirection. Every delay was strategic positioning for this exact moment. Your family is about to witness something they never saw coming. Not because God changed his mind about you, but because the appointed time for your unveiling has finally arrived. They're going to see the real you, the one heaven always knew you were. The provider, not the person in need. The solution, not the problem. The funded one, not the financially forgotten. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you step into who you really are, or will you keep hiding behind who you used to be? Because what happens next depends entirely on your willingness to shed the disguise and embrace the divine identity that's been waiting for this moment to emerge. You know what haunts me most about your story, chosen one? It's not the battles you fought alone. It's not even the tears you cried in silence. It's this. You were sent into a family to break something that had never been broken before, and they didn't even know they needed you to break it. They didn't pray for you. But God heard the ache anyway. Think about it. How many nights did your grandmother sit at that kitchen table, staring at bills she couldn't pay, whispering prayers that never mentioned your name? How many times did your mother stand in that empty hallway, feeling the weight of generational poverty pressing down on her chest, not knowing that heaven was already crafting the solution inside your DNA? You were the remedy they never had the language to ask for. See, your family's been trapped in cycles they inherited. Financial bondage passed down like a family heirloom, nobody wanted but everybody got. Your great-grandmother cleaned other people's houses while her own dreams died in silence. Your grandfather worked 3 jobs and still couldn't afford to dream beyond survival. Your parents learned to apologize for wanting more, to shrink their expectations, to make peace with just enough. But here's what they didn't know. God was listening to their unspoken cries. Every sigh over an empty bank account was heard. Every moment they bit their tongue, instead of asking for help, God catalogued that silence. Every time they made do with less, pretending it was enough, heaven was taking notes. And then you came. Not as their first choice, not as their planned blessing. You came as heaven's strategic response to generations of suppressed prayers. You felt it, didn't you? That weight on your shoulders that nobody else seemed to carry. That responsibility to be different, to break through, to somehow fix what was broken long before you arrived. While other kids were worried about homework, you were worried about the electricity getting cut off. While other teenagers were planning college, you were calculating which bill could wait another week. They called you mature for your age. They said you were an old soul. But what they really meant was this. You carried generational pain that wasn't yours to carry, and you carried it with grace that came from somewhere beyond this world. You were the one who held it together when everyone else was falling apart. You were the one who found money when there was no money to find. You were the one who prayed with trembling hands over a tithe that left you with cereal for dinner, because something inside you understood that your obedience was connected to their breakthrough, even when they couldn't see it. Deuteronomy 28:12 declares, "The Lord will open to you his good treasury, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hands." But here's what most people miss. Sometimes God opens that treasury through one family member who dares to believe differently. Joseph understood this. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, forgotten in prison for years, but carrying a divine download that would save not just his life, but his entire bloodline. Genesis 50:20 captures it perfectly. "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive." Your isolation wasn't abandonment, your struggles weren't punishment, your pain wasn't pointless, you were being positioned. Every night you cried yourself to sleep because you felt different, misunderstood, alone. Those weren't accidents, those were appointments with destiny. God was downloading into your spirit the faith frequency that your family line had lost generations ago. You see, your family stopped believing in miracles because life taught them that miracles don't happen to people like them. They learned to expect disappointment. They mastered the art of lowered expectations. They developed immunity to hope because hope had hurt them too many times. But you carried something they couldn't kill. A stubborn, irrational, relentless belief that things could be different. Even when your checking account laughed at your faith. Even when your prayers seemed to bounce off the ceiling. Even when your own family looked at you like you were crazy for believing God could do something unprecedented in your bloodline. That wasn't naivety. That was prophecy living inside you. Jeremiah 1:5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, and before you were born I consecrated you." God consecrated you, set you apart, not for an easy life, but for a breakthrough life. A life that would answer prayers. Your family didn't even know how to pray. And now, right now, heaven is ready to release what you've been carrying in seed form. This transfer isn't just money hitting your account. This is generational redemption manifesting in real time. This is the answer to your grandmother's silent tears, your mother's unspoken dreams, your father's suppressed hopes. Your family's about to witness what happens when God decides to interrupt poverty with his own son or daughter who refuse to accept. This is just how things are as the final answer. They're going to ask how you did it, and your answer will be simple. I didn't. I just agreed to be the vessel for what heaven wanted to pour out on this entire family line. You weren't born to perpetuate their patterns. You were born to shatter them. You weren't sent to continue their story. You were sent to completely rewrite it. If you're the one who always held it together, if you're the one who carried what others couldn't carry, just type, "I carried it." That's your altar. That's your agreement. Because the weight you've been carrying is about to become the wealth that transforms everything. But this is bigger than personal breakthrough. This is about the prayer your great-great-grandmother whispered into the darkness, believing that somehow, some way, God would send someone to break the curse of lack that had held your family captive for far too long. You are that someone, and heaven is about to prove it. Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your suffering. The enemy didn't fear your present condition. He never trembled at your empty bank account or your broken relationships. What terrified him was your future. What made hell hold emergency meetings was the wealth transfer. Heaven had already approved with your name on it. That's why the storms weren't random. They were prophetic resistance. Every attack you endured, every door that slammed shut, every betrayal that left you bleeding, none of it was punishment. It was confirmation. You were under siege because you were carrying something too powerful to ignore. The devil doesn't waste ammunition on nobodies. He reserves his heaviest artillery for those destined to disrupt his kingdom. Think about it. Why did your childhood feel like a battlefield? Why did every step forward seem to trigger 3 steps back? Why did people who should have protected you become your greatest opposition? Because the enemy could see what God placed in you before you were even born. He could smell the anointing on your bloodline. He knew that one day you would rise as the generational curse breaker. But here's what the enemy miscalculated. Every weapon he formed against you was actually forging you for victory. Look at Job, the wealthiest man in the East, blessed beyond measure, walking in divine favor. But Satan saw something else. He saw a man whose faith was about to be tested at levels that would become legendary. "Have you considered my servant Job?" God asked. But Satan had already been watching, already plotting, already fearing what Job would become after the trial. Satan asked permission to sift Job like wheat. But here's the key. He had to ask permission. The enemy cannot touch what God has sealed without divine authorization. And when God allows the sifting, it's never for destruction, it's for demonstration. Your warfare was never about breaking you down. It was about proving what you're made of. You weren't under attack. You were in training. Every sleepless night when anxiety consumed you, that was endurance training for the sleepless nights you'll spend managing divine overflow. Every time you had to choose between paying rent or buying groceries, that was stewardship training for the millions you'll soon manage. Every betrayal that taught you to trust God alone, that was leadership preparation for the influence you're about to carry. The enemy knew that your financial breakthrough wouldn't just change your life. It would rewrite your family's entire DNA. He knew that the wealth coming to you would fund kingdom movements, heal generational trauma, and position you as a financer of destiny. So he attacked early, attacked hard, and attacked consistently. But what he didn't realize is that God was using every assault as advanced training. Jesus told Peter, "Satan has asked to sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail." Notice Jesus didn't prevent the sifting. He prayed through it. Because the sifting wasn't the enemy's victory, it was God's strategy to separate the wheat from the chaff in Peter's character. That crushing season when you lost everything, that was wheat separation. That period when everyone abandoned you, that was chaff removal. That time when your prayers seemed to bounce off the ceiling, that was faith refinement under pressure. You survived what was designed to destroy you. You endured what was meant to eliminate you. You held on to God when letting go would have been easier. And now the enemy's worst nightmare is about to become reality. The very person he tried to break is about to become the breakthrough. The warfare intensified because the transfer was imminent. Look at your life timeline. Notice how the attacks escalated right before your major breakthroughs. Every time you were about to level up, hell seemed to break loose. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. The closer you get to your destiny, the more desperate the enemy becomes. But here's what will shock your family. The same battles that almost broke you are about to become your greatest testimonies. The depression that nearly destroyed you is about to become the platform that heals others. The financial struggles that humiliated you are about to become the wisdom that guides your wealth. Your scars are about to become your credentials. The enemy thought he was writing your obituary, but God was writing your resume. Every trial was a qualification, every test was training, every setback was set up for the comeback that will echo through generations. Think about David. Before he faced Goliath, he fought lions and bears in private. Those weren't random encounters, they were divine preparation. When the giant showed up publicly, David had already proven privately that no weapon formed against him could prosper. Your giants are coming down. Your Goliaths are about to fall. The same courage that got you through private battles is about to manifest in public victories. The same faith that sustained you in secret seasons is about to shock the world in this next chapter. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you trust the process that prepared you for the transfer? The warfare wasn't your enemy, it was your education. The battles weren't punishment, they were preparation. And now, the very hands that learned to fight empty are about to learn what it feels like to carry abundance that changes everything. Listen closely, chosen one. Because what just happened in the heavenlies will redefine everything you thought you knew about your purpose on this earth. The moment that divine transfer was authorized, something seismic shifted in the spirit realm. You didn't just receive resources, you received reach. You've been marked as a channel, not a container. Do you hear that? That's the sound of spiritual gates creaking open. Gates that have been locked for generations in your family line. Your grandmother prayed for breakthrough she never saw. Your father worked himself to death for prosperity that never came. But you just became the generational gate breaker. The one who doesn't just receive the blessing, but releases it. Here's what your family doesn't understand yet. This transfer didn't just change your bank account, it changed your spiritual assignment. You are no longer just blessed, you are now a blessing distributor. Heaven has upgraded your spiritual clearance level. You now have access to realms of favor that your ancestors could only dream about. The Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 9:11, "You will be enriched in every way, so that you can be generous on every occasion." Every way, chosen one, not just financially. Your influence is expanding, your voice is amplifying, your presence is magnetizing. Doors that wouldn't even acknowledge your knock are now swinging open before you even approach them. But here's where it gets shocking. This isn't just about you anymore. When heaven funds a transfer like this, it's never for individual consumption. It's for kingdom distribution. You've been enrolled in God's elite distribution network. You will fund things that never existed before. You will sponsor miracles. You will authorize moves that outlive you. Can you feel the weight of that? The responsibility, the absolute honor. While others are still praying for their breakthrough, you've become someone else's answer to prayer. While they're asking God for provision, God is sending them to you. Think about this. How many times have you been the one knocking on doors, asking for help? How many times have you been the one hoping someone would see your potential and invest in your vision? Those days are over. You are now the door opener. You are now the vision funder. You are now the miracle worker that God uses to change other people's stories. But here's what will absolutely shock your family. You're about to start moving in authority they've never seen before. When you speak, things shift. When you decree, heaven responds. When you sow, harvests multiply exponentially. This isn't arrogance, this is anointing. And your family is about to witness what happens when someone walks in their full spiritual authority. Jesus said in Luke 6:38, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap." Running over, chosen one. Not just enough, not just sufficient, running over, overflowing, flooding. And that overflow doesn't stop with you, it flows through you. Your family will watch in amazement as opportunities chase you down. They'll see contracts find you instead of you finding them. They'll witness favor follow you into rooms where you have no business being welcomed. And they'll ask the question that will echo through your bloodline for generations. How did this happen? And you'll know. Because you understand that this transfer unlocked something in the spirit realm that money alone could never access. It unlocked divine connections. It unlocked supernatural strategies. It unlocked generational favor that was stored up in heaven, waiting for the right vessel to carry it to earth. Here's the truth that will revolutionize your family's understanding of God. You didn't chase this blessing. This blessing chased you. You didn't qualify for this favor through your works. You qualified through your worship. You didn't earn this transfer through your hustle. You received it through your faithfulness in the waiting. And now that faithfulness has been rewarded with more than money, it's been rewarded with mandate. You have been commissioned to disrupt the enemy's financial strongholds in other people's lives. You have been authorized to break generational curses of poverty. You have been appointed to demonstrate what kingdom economics look like in action. Your family will see you funding scholarships for kids who remind you of yourself at their age. They'll watch you paying off mortgages for elderly saints who tithed their whole lives but never saw abundance. They'll witness you starting businesses that employ people others wouldn't hire. And through it all, they'll realize that this wasn't just a financial upgrade, this was a spiritual activation. But here's what they may not understand initially. This new level comes with new devils. Your generosity will be questioned. Your motives will be analyzed. Your methods will be scrutinized. People will try to figure out your secret. They'll look for the gimmick, the scheme, the angle. But there is none. There's only obedience. There's only alignment. There's only the mysterious ways of a God who chooses the foolish things to confound the wise. The transfer unlocked your ability to operate in realms where logic doesn't apply, where favor defies formulas, where breakthrough happens not because you hustled harder, but because you trusted deeper. Your family is about to witness miracles that textbooks can't explain and accountants can't calculate. If you receive the mantle of distribution, type, I am heaven's channel, because this isn't about ownership, it's about obedience. This transfer has positioned you as heaven's financial representative on earth. And your family's shock isn't just about the money, it's about watching someone they thought they knew step into a dimension of authority they never imagined possible. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you steward this transfer like a blessing, or will you release it like an assignment? Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to remember 3 unchangeable truths that will anchor your faith in the days ahead. First, this transfer isn't about your worthiness, it's about God's faithfulness. Every delay, every closed door, every moment you felt forgotten was Him positioning you for this exact moment. The wealth flowing toward you carries His fingerprints, not your achievements. Second, your family's shock will transform into awe when they realize they're not just witnessing your elevation, they're watching God rewrite the financial DNA of your entire bloodline. You are the chosen vessel, but they are the blessed beneficiaries. Third, this abundance comes with assignment. You've been entrusted with resources that will outlive your lifetime. The miracles you'll fund, the dreams you'll sponsor, the lives you'll transform. This is kingdom economics in action. But here's what I want you to know with absolute certainty. You are not walking this path alone. Even when family members don't understand the magnitude of what's happening, God sees every step. Even when old friends distance themselves because your light exposes their compromise, the Father remains closer than your next breath. And right here, in this community, you have thousands of prayer warriors who understand your calling because they carry the same anointing. We are not just viewers and content creator, we are a family united by divine purpose. We celebrate together, we intercede together, we rise together. When one breakthrough happens, we all feel the victory. When one struggles, we all stand in the gap. I want to ask you something that will echo in your spirit long after this video ends. If God trusted you with this level of financial anointing, what impossible thing is He calling you to make possible for someone else? Let me pray over you right now. I want you to feel the weight of heaven's hand upon your shoulder. Father God, I thank you for every person who heard this word and felt their spirit leap in recognition. Right now, I speak over their finances, their families, their futures. Lord, you have already signed the transfer orders. You have already dispatched the angels. You have already moved the mountains. Release supernatural provision into their hands. Open doors that no man can shut. Cause favor to chase them down in the marketplace. Let their names be mentioned in rooms they've never entered. Break every generational curse of poverty, lack, and limitation that has haunted their bloodline. God, comfort their hearts when family members don't understand. Strengthen their resolve when critics question their methods. Remind them daily that they are your chosen vessels, hand-picked for this moment in history. Let this abundance flow through them like a river, touching every life they encounter. Make them funding sources for miracles. Make them sponsors of dreams. Make them living proof that you still move supernaturally in the earth today. Protect their hearts from pride and their hands from selfishness. Keep them anchored in humility and rooted in purpose. Let their lives become sermons that need no words, only evidence of your goodness. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Asterisk, asterisk. Before you leave this sacred space, I want to ask you to do something powerful. In the comments below, share what stirred in your heart during this message. Maybe it was a specific word that hit you. Maybe it was a memory of God's faithfulness.